load the box, the most electrifying episode following the most electrifying game. The lowest scoring NFL game to be played inside in the entire history of the league. I'm Jordan Hawthorne, here to talk about that electricity. What was your favorite punt, Will? I'm joined by Will Goodwin, of course. What was your favorite punt?
My favorite punt, although I think Matt Daniels didn't like what Brandon Powell was doing on that punt, the 83-yard punt by what's his name? Whoever the Raiders punter is.
Is it AJ Cole?
AJ Cole, yeah, he one of the best punters in the league, frankly, and he punted it 83 yards, and Brandon Powell almost touched it like 3 times, and then let it go into the end zone for a touchback. I think that was my favorite punt and probably my favorite play of the game, other than the game-sealing interception and the subsequent backflip.
Yeah, there was obviously, and I think we'll talk about this briefly. We're not gonna spend a ton of time tonight talking about the Vegas game because there were 3 total points scored. So we're going to give props to the defense. And does Greg Joseph get props for going 1 for 2 on field goals? It doesn't really feel like that's a props type scenario.
Not necessarily. I mean, he made enough. The one thing that I do want to acknowledge that I actually think, is true. Matt Daniels is he praises his players well. Kind of, it's similar to how O'Connell does things and kind of the whole coaching staff in general. But he also, I think, something that Daniels does almost better than any of the other coaches is he's hard on his players.
Yeah.
And he and Matt Daniels is the special teams coordinator. He something he praised Greg Joseph for in his press conference yesterday was how he rarely sees Joseph miss 2 in a row. And how when he needs to show up and he needs to make a clutch kick, he does. And I actually think that's pretty true. I mean, you could go back into the archives of Greg Joseph kicks and you could probably find a couple misses in a row some places. And I think there was the Green Bay game last year, he missed 2. I don't know if they were back-to-back. He missed 2 in Green Bay this year. But in general, I feel like for the most part, he's making at least one of the 2 if it needs, and he generally makes the clutch one. And sure, the clutch one this time was 13 yards shorter and all that, but he's right. I mean, there is this weird quality about Greg Joseph. Despite, having an under 80% field goal percentage on the year, he makes the game winner every time.
I do think it is also worth pointing out, as we are doing this 55 minutes kicking show. Here we go. Strap in, folks. I saw a stat. It was like Greg Joseph has 3 50-yard field goals this season. Oh, the Vikings have 3 50-yard field goals made, which obviously Greg Joseph is the only one with any attempts for the Vikings. The other lowest, the second lowest team in the league, I think is at 6. And there's a few teams that have made 6. And Joseph's percentages are really bad. He's not a good kicker. I don't know what the kicking free agency market looks like, but I would not be shocked if Greg Joseph is not a Viking next season. But to your point, he has made some clutch kicks in his time, and I was the biggest Kai Fairbath fan on the planet. I didn't understand why we got rid of him after he made a couple clutch kicks in the New Orleans playoff game. Kind of seemed like, he missed a PAT every now and then, but when you needed him to be money, he was money, and I didn't understand why we got rid of him, but, it's kickers. Ivan Pace Jr., absolute stud, dog. I was right on that one. I loved him in the pre-draft. I thought he was gonna be more of a diet Micah Parsons than he turned out to be. I thought he was going to be much more of an edge guy. No, he's just playing inside linebacker, and he's doing it pretty dang well. He's calling the plays. He's wearing the green dot. I mean, there's a legitimate discussion about where he ranks in terms of undrafted rookie seasons, not rookie careers, right? Or not UDFA careers, but undrafted first year. How good are you? And I think that there's a discussion there that he's probably up there. He's had a tremendous season. I think he, right now, in my opinion, is the defensive rookie of the year. He has an interception. He has a first fumble. He has 3.5 sacks or 4 sacks.
I think it's 2.5 sacks.
Is it 2.5? Okay, well.
But two of them are in the last 2 weeks. He had one against Chicago and he had one against the Raiders.
And you're seeing, and this isn't something that jumps off, stat sheets, casual fans that are just scrolling box scores won't see it, but you watch him play, and it feels like the first few weeks in run defense, he would just run at somebody and engage with an offensive lineman, and now he's finessing offensive linemen. He had a play against Vegas where they were running the ball, I believe, to, Ivan's left, and he ran like he was going to engage, and he almost hits a juke at the last second. So the lineman goes to engage him and he just whiffs. And then Ivan Pace is there to make a tackle at the line of scrimmage. I think the play went for 1 or 2 yards. But that's a win for a defense. It's a 1 yard rush, a 2 yard rush. So I just can't say enough about him. I think he's been outstanding. The Vikings defense has given up 1 touchdown in the last 3 games. They're 1-2 in those games. The offense has fumbled in a major way, quite literally in Denver, and interceptions in Chicago, at home against Chicago. But what was your takeaway from the defense in this game?
Obviously Ivan Pace, but I think the other person that just continues to jump off the screen is Josh Metellus. And I feel like, we talk about Metellus and Pace and Cam Bynum, those 3 guys over and over and over again, and it's totally warranted. I mean, it's wild to think how, preseason I was kind of thinking I don't know if Bynum's going to see the field much, or hopefully Pace makes the team. And wow, they gave Metellus a 2-year extension. What's that about? And those 3 guys have been just machines for this defense.
Yeah.
Metellus had another forced fumble, just casually, preserving the shutout in the red zone there, and it's pretty remarkable what he has done now as a 5th round pick, and he just continues to climb. He plays almost every snap on defense. He's literally played 12 positions this season. There's only 11 on the field. So do the math there. It's pretty crazy to think what he has done for this team, and there is a legitimate argument to be made that he is their most valuable asset on defense, and he was a guy that we weren't so sure that he would be a contributor outside of maybe some specialty packages, but he's on the field all the time now. Frankly, it's him and, but in short, it's basically him who's replaced Jordan Hicks. You look and you think is Troy Dye playing, 70% of the snaps? No, Troy Dye played about 8 snaps on Sunday. He did have a sack in there, his first of his career. But it's largely Josh Metellus who is just eating up the rest of those snaps, and then other guys filling in other spots. Theo Jackson has seen the field a little bit too. It's sort of just, as Flores does, he just puts guys in spots. He doesn't worry about the position, and he likes to put his best 11 out there for whatever the situation describes. And it's been remarkable to see what Metellus has done, and we've kind of come to expect excellence from him now at this point.
Yeah, I think that it's impressive the way the defense has been playing over the last, let's just call it month. The way that they've really kind of, even against the Saints, they had a really good first half, and then they kind of faltered a little bit in the second half, but they still, I don't even think, gave up 20. So just a month of dominant football with a bye week thrown in there. So 5 weeks of dominant football if you want to count the bye week. But I think that you just have to be impressed with Brian Flores' unit. Flipping it to the other side, and this will kind of be the transition into the Cincinnati game, Josh Dobbs has been playing not great, and he's getting sacked a lot. And there were a few sacks in that Vegas game where I was, we were saying I watch the games. I say this every week, I feel like, but I watch the games with my dad and my brother, and my dad would say, oh, he's getting killed. The line's not holding up. And I was like, he's holding the ball. Like, he had the ball for like 5 seconds, and then he scrambled. So, like, I'm okay if we want to blame the receivers for not getting open, but then you go back and you're watching film, and I'm watching film breakdowns of the receivers, and the receivers are getting open. He's just not seeing them. And I don't know if that is... Look, maybe O'Connell told him, don't even look at Jordan Addison on a deep post. Don't even worry about it. It's just a distraction. Only look at these two guys. Maybe he dumbed down the offense too much, but it just wasn't working. I think it was telling that Nick Mullins came in and the line seemed to get better when they really didn't. They were down Brian O'Neill and Ed Ingram's out, which, might be a addition by subtraction maybe, but you start looking at what the Vikings were doing with Nick Mullins, and he's getting rid of the ball. That internal clock is going a little bit better. He is delivering balls down the field, over the middle, and he's not, throwing balls that put our best player in the hospital. And granted, that deep throw, it was like a medium throw to Hawkinson. It got tipped, but it still, it barely got tipped. It still went to Hawkinson, and he still caught it. I think if he puts it an inch outside, Hawkinson still makes the catch. It was a very close tip, so I'm not going to take credit away or say that it was all luck for Nick Mullins. I think he came in, he was delivering with timing and accuracy that you didn't see out of Josh Dobbs, and I think that explains why the Vikings have announced Nick Mullins is starting in Cincinnati. Now, I still say if the Vikings lose their next two, Jayon Hall comes back in, and Jayon Hall's the guy, in sense of, okay, let's see what he can do, and maybe we have a diamond in the rough, but I think we would know that, because I think this coaching staff sees him in practice every day, and they know that he's developing and coming along. So, Nick Mullins gives us the best chance to win right now. I like the move. I agree with the move. I think we were about 18 minutes late to make the move in that game. It felt like we probably should have done it at halftime. What do you think? What's your analysis of it? Are you pissed? Are you happy?
You feel for Josh Dobbs because of what he did for the team. You can think two things at once. Like, in one hand, I'm really grateful, and it was a blast watching Josh Dobbs play football for about 2.5 games. And on the other hand, I'm ready to give it to Nick Mullins.
Right.
And I think, O'Connell, to his credit, to his detriment, however you want to think about it, he wanted to give Josh Dobbs one more shot. And because, as he put it, this is what they said on the broadcast on Sunday, this is the point in Josh Dobbs' career where the teams generally quit on him. And O'Connell didn't want to do that because he'd seen things that he liked. And, I give him credit for that. I think, to your point, I would have liked to see a change at halftime. But it is what it is. They won the game. I think Mullins running the offense will be smoother. And I don't expect mistake-free football. Even some of his completions were thrown behind people, and I mean, he's a backup. He's Kirk Cousins light. He's not Kirk Cousins. So we're gonna get some mistakes. We might get a couple interceptions here or there. But I think he probably does give us the best chance to win, especially with the offense that's in place. And now that we have the best receiver in football back, you want to take advantage of that from a passing perspective.
Yeah.
On that point, Justin Jefferson will play on Saturday, barring some random setback. The team hasn't announced it, but Justin announced it, so I think he'll be out there.
I want to quickly, before we move on to Jefferson playing and injury reports in Cincinnati, I do want to say, if you are sitting at home and you have the urge to, I want to see the evidence for myself. Is Nick Mullins actually going to give us a better chance to win than Josh Dobbs did? Because maybe you really liked what Josh Dobbs did with his legs in the first couple of games that he played. Go watch Josh Dobbs' first couple of throws against the Saints, where he throws these little out routes to Jordan Addison or to whoever it was, and he is behind and late on the out routes. One of them should have been a pick, maybe a pick six, and the other one just got deflected. Who's the guy from the commercials who says, like, no, not today? Like, just swatted out of the air. No chance. And then go watch Nick Mullins' few throws against Las Vegas, and you will see, like, Jordan Addison's not even out of the, like, he hasn't even broke on the route, and Mullins is cock-backed and letting it rip because he understands you have to throw that with such precision. Otherwise, it's going to get picked or it's going to get swatted down. So you have to throw before he makes the break, and then he makes the break, and he turns his head. The ball's right there. Catch, first down. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I would highly recommend you just go watch those few plays if you can find them. And I think you will be convinced.
And something just to keep in mind here is Mullins has been around for almost 2 years now with Kevin O'Connell's offense. And it's a big thing. I mean, he knows this as well as Kirk Cousins, basically. He doesn't get as many reps in practice, but he gets all the mental reps. He's been in the meeting rooms for 2 years. And so you can trust the level of execution, at least the level of preparation. And this is not knocking Josh Dobbs. It's just, he just hasn't been here. And so I think we can expect a little better there. One thing I will say going into this Cincy game, and, I'm at such a one game at a time pace at this point, I can't even think about week 16 or whatever is next. But I would like to see a little Josh Dobbs Wildcat RPO package. I think throwing a wrinkle in there, 4 plays or something on Saturday, where, the primary read is to run the ball and then only throw it if somebody's wide open kind of thing. Give him an option to hand it off to the back or pull it and then run it himself, because he is a dynamic runner and we've seen that. And so I would like to see that as sort of just a once a quarter type thing. Throw him in there, and
I'd like to see it in the red zone. And the specific play, let me go get my chalkboard for you guys. We ran that goofy play in Denver where Dobbs lines up and then Hawkinson runs under Cinto and pitches it to Dobbs. Do you think anyone is going to cover Johnny Munt if he goes out on a route after Hawkinson pitches the ball to Dobbs and Dobbs acts like he's going to run? No one's going to cover Johnny Munt. Let Dobbs just float one over to Johnny Munt. And you're talking about, like, that's a play that I could see them implementing, inside the 10, maybe inside like the 7. That could be, I don't want to say a free touchdown, but could very well be like, hey, we think this is going to work the way that we think. Everyone's going to bite up, throw the ball, just float it to the back of the end zone. Johnny Munt touchdown. That's 7, baby. Like, woohoo. And so I agree. I would like to see Dobbs' athleticism used in a similar fashion to whenever, you see like the Patriots a few years ago when Mac Jones was a Pro Bowler somehow. They would still bring Cam Newton in and have him like run the ball every now and then. Or, if you have that kind of athleticism on your team, you try to utilize it. This Bengals game.
How do you
go ahead?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you feel about this Bengals game that you will be in attendance for?
I am looking forward to it. The Vikings come to my neck of the woods as they come to Paycor Stadium, which still does not feel correct to say. That is Paul Brown Stadium, and it will be forever. But they come down here. They haven't won here in a long, long, long time. The last time they were down here, it was a preseason game. It was like a few days before Teddy's leg fell off, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe it was like a week before his leg fell off. But very excited. Any chance I get to go see the Vikings play, I'm going to try to dive all over. I felt short-changed that they played the Colts last year, which is also not that far from me. And they played in Minnesota. And I was like, oh, well, if they came to Indianapolis, I could go to the game. And so Going with some Bengals funds of mine, we're all very excited about Nick Mullins versus Jake Browning. My daughter is very excited about Nick Mullins versus Jake Browning. And the Bengals look tough. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to, be goofy to try and make my funds angry. The Bengals look pretty good with Jake Browning. Jake Browning is delivering the ball to those weapons. He has a plethora to deliver to. He's got Mixon to run the ball. They now have this rookie like Chase Brown or whatever his name is that is coming on and hitting like 22 miles an hour on runs and stuff. Not to mention Jamal Chase and T. Higgins, which are just absolutely insane. And then, of course, they have Tanner Hudson, who is the tight end, who's like the third-string tight end but seems to catch a touchdown every week. So their offense has hung 30 in back-to-back weeks. They're feeling themselves. They're in a rhythm. But, I mean, they haven't played a defense like the Vikings defense. And I think that's going to play a factor in this game. And I'll just spoil – I won't spoil my score prediction on my game ball, but I will say my key matchup that I'm looking forward to, it's the linebackers for the Vikings and what, specifically Ivan Pace. He went to the University of Cincinnati. He originally went to the University of Miami, which is actually 10 minutes from my house. And I don't know if you know this, Saturday is his birthday. So this is the Ivan Pace, like you want to talk about a breakout game. This is the chance on his birthday in his hometown. I'm looking forward to see. The Bengals like to try to run the ball. They have Joe Mixon, they have Chase Brown, and they have a backup QB. They want to run the ball as much as possible. So it's going to be crucial that these linebackers shoot some gaps, get some tackles for loss, and also the Bengals love getting rid of the ball quickly. So apologies if this maybe dips into some of your matchups, but I just think tackling is going to be so crucial on the outside. You're going to have to bring down Jamal Chase one-on-one. Good luck, Mekhi Blackman, but you have to do it. You have to do it, and so I think it's going to be an exciting game. But that's my. I'm going to say Ivan Pace is my like X factor. He's the guy who needs to have the big day.
There are so many things in there that I just want to scream at you for because you stole my game ball prediction, or you basically said everything that I was gonna say. You also did a very nice preview for the article that I'm writing about Ivan Pace right now. So thank you for all of that.
You can't expect
I will make sure I cite.
You can't expect me to
I'll
not
cite my
talk
sources.
about my favorite Viking, period. Like, he has taken Danielle Hunter. He has taken Eric Kendrick's spot in my heart as my new... I listened to his post-game interview last week where some reporter asked him a question about, when did you realize your size wasn't going to affect your play or some bullcrap like that? And he said, I always knew it was never going to affect me. I'm a dog. And he just kept saying, I'm a dog. And I was like, you are a dog, Ivan. His name is Ivan. What? Who's naming their kid Ivan in
It's amazing.
2001, whenever he was probably bound? Like, just insanity. I'm sorry that I stole your game ball.
Yeah.
And
no, it's good. It's just we're on the same wavelength there because, like you said, he's going home, and it's the perfect storm. He was just named NFC Defensive Player of the Week. He had the highest PFF grade of any defender this last week. He is riding very high, and all of the storylines are meshing on Saturday. It's his birthday. He's home. He's playing his, hometown team, even though he was a Vikings fan as a kid. And it's all perfect for Ivan Pace. He's going to get the game ball. So everything you said, I really appreciated. The thing that you did mention that I thought was really interesting was the tackling piece. And I noted that the Vikings are fourth best in the league, so they have the fourth fewest missed tackles. So they're a very sure tackling team. So that's going to be very important. It's going to be very important on the outside. Like you said, they rely heavily on yards after catch. They rely heavily on the screen game. So they're going to rely a lot on quick decisions, quick throws to their embarrassment of riches in the weapons department. They've even got old friend Irv Smith Jr. I don't know if he's active for this game on Saturday, but he's around somewhere. Every time I think I've remembered all of the Bengals weapons, I forget one. Like, no, there's Tyler Boyd. We forgot about him.
Yeah. He
So
just
there's
slides
always
under the
somebody.
way.
Yeah, he's the fifth option. So it's a remarkable offense. The thing that I just um keep coming back to with this game is, I can kind of do things backwards here a little bit. I was going to talk about my score prediction later, but since we already did my game ball, I'll get into my score prediction here. This whole time I was thinking, this whole week, frankly, this whole season, even especially after Kirk got hurt and all this stuff, and then watching the Bengals start to do this with Jake Browning, I was thinking, like, well, this is going to be a tough one. The Vikings are going to lose. It's whatever. And I just had that premonition the whole time, sort of like, the Vikings will lose. How close will it be? And the more I dug into it, the more I, buried my head in Pro Football Reference, which I don't know how much that really helps, but that coupled with the things that I see the Bengals do well and the things that the Vikings do well on defense, I think Brian Flores is going to give Jake Browning a lot of problems. And this offense that scored 34 points 2 weeks in a row or whatever it is, they, like you said, have not played a defense like the Vikings, which is so strange to say. It's taken me about 14 weeks now to...
They played Pittsburgh. I want to point with Jake Browning. Like, they played Pittsburgh,
yes,
and they looked terrible. Like, the offense could not move. And so I don't want to say they've never played a defense like the Vikings. They've played one good defense with Jake Browning, and the offense was a no-show for that entire game. I think Joe Mixon had like a screen in garbage time that went big. I didn't mean to cut you off. I did just want to point that out.
No, that's a good point. And with all this stuff, it's really hard to really nail down what's true, what's sort of just random, because the guy's only started 3 games. Jake Browning, that is, former Viking. This game is basically a Kirk Cousins apprentice understudy game. Jake versus Nick. But so it's really hard to know, like, based on 3 games what we're going to get. But like you said, they played one real defense at home and they looked bad. The Jaguars and the Colts do some things okay, but they're nowhere near the Vikings in terms of points allowed and efficiency against the rush. The Vikings are outstanding against the rush. They're third best in the league when it comes to expected points against the run. It's remarkable what this unit's doing, and it's gotten to the point now where I can't forget about them anymore. I think this whole season I've sort of been like, yeah, but they're the Vikings, and last season they were terrible, and this is all going to come crashing down, and it's just not going to. I think I've finally gotten to the point where I've been convinced, and so I actually have the Vikings winning on Saturday. I didn't think that I would. Feels kind of like a heart prediction over a head prediction in some ways, but I think Nick Mullins is going to move the offense enough. I think the defense is going to give Browning plenty to work with, or plenty to think about, plenty of headaches. I think they're going to keep him under 20 points. The Vikings don't allow touchdowns anymore. It's just not part of what they do. And so I think the Vikings win 2017. I think it'll be close. I think it's not going to be one of those, oh, the Bengals scored at the end to make it look better. I think it's going to be a very good game. I just think this defense is just such a problem. I just can't forget about them anymore. I can't discount them anymore. One thing that I do need to say about this, and kind of what pushed me over the edge on this score prediction and this game prediction, was I started thinking about why the Vikings are 5-2 at home, or 5-2 on the road and 2-4 at home. And then I was thinking about how, like, well, the Vikings' best defense is best unit is their defense, right? And a defense, especially one that relies on communication like this one does. They rely on a lot of checks. They're talking all the time. Flores gives them a lot of freedom to check plays at the line of scrimmage and all those different things. They would prefer for the crowd to be quiet. And when you're at home, the crowd's really loud.
Yep.
And when you're on the road, the crowd is quiet when the offense is operating and when, the Vikings defense is on the field. And so I looked into that a little bit, and it actually checks out. The Vikings defense on the road allows just under 4.7 yards per play and about 296 yards per game. They forced 11 turnovers in 7 games. That runs to about 1.6 turnovers a game. 5.2 yards per play, 329 yards a game, and only about 1.3 turnovers a game. So all those metrics are a little bit better when they're on the road. And I think that matters. I think the communication piece and the noise level actually helps. So I don't worry so much about the road, especially with this defense and how good they're playing. So
yeah,
that's where I'm at. I'm putting my eggs sort of in this basket of, all right, I know we're not supposed to talk about Brian Flores because we want him to get hired and we don't want people to hire him as a head coach. But Brian Flores is going to get us another win here. I think it's going to happen.
So I think it's funny that you said you are in one game at a time mode and you can't look ahead to, future weeks and think about all that. I'm the opposite. Every day this week, don't tell my boss, I have gotten on ESPN's playoff projection website and just went through and picked some games. And I have a prediction that I will now set in stone. I have retracted the Super Bowl. I don't know if I did retract the Super Bowl prediction, but it is.
I don't think you have yet.
I think whenever I was trying to record a show the week that you were traveling, that's how I was opening it, and maybe that's why it didn't get done, was because I was just heartbroken. That is retracted. This will be the official. It's not a Super Bowl season for the Vikings. It's a division title for the Vikings, and it's more than just a division title for the Vikings. The Vikings-Lions game at the end of the season will be pointless. The Vikings are going 3-0. The Lions are going 0-3. Division's wrapped up in 3 weeks. I'm just saying.
It's crazy that you say that because I've heard that from multiple people now making similar comments. I'm not saying you stole it because it's private conversations I've had, but one of my colleagues at work is a huge Lions fan, and he told me heard it here first.
Okay, continue. Sorry, you cut out for a second.
Okay. The Vikings are going to beat the Lions twice and win the division. And kind of things I've heard from different people is wild you're saying this. I was going to say as a wild sort of similarity, is going to be for the division in Detroit. So you're even going further and saying
I am saying that the Vikings will beat they're going to beat the Bengals. The score prediction is going to be, ironically, I was going to say 2017. I will change it. And I will say 24-20. So the Vikings still come out with a win. I'm gonna say they beat the Bengals, they beat the Lions, they beat Green Bay. Remember that those Lions and Green Bay games are at home, and apparently we don't want them to be at home. That's not me poking fun at the statistics that you've dropped, but that is a legitimate. I mean, the Vikings just have played better on the road, so maybe I should be rooting against the Vikings, sneak in as a wild card, and then go, 2007 Giants on the NFC and just run to the Super Bowl. But the Lions' schedule, for those of you that are curious, they're going to lose to Denver, who is playing well and forcing turnovers and doing all that jazz. They're going to lose to Denver. They're going to lose to the Vikings, and then they play Dallas. And I just think that those are 3 losable games. For a team that is starting to turn into a pumpkin late in the season. The defense is Swiss cheese in Detroit, and Jared Goff is just not the same electric man that he once was. Now, granted, Jared Goff in a dome is like unbelievable. He's like Joe Montana, Tom Brady, and all of these games are he's nothing but domes the rest of the way. It's because he's in Dallas, he's in Detroit a couple of times, and then he's in Minnesota. So he's gonna be in domes. So we'll see what happens. But I really think I can see 3-0 and 0-3 for these teams, and an NFC clinching win over Green Bay. We'd have to beat Green Bay to clinch the division if the Lions lost.
Wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. And that game, week 17 at home against Green Bay, will be the Sunday night game.
Yep.
And so Detroit will have already played.
Yep.
So if the Vikings win that game, they could have a celebration on the field similar to last year, which obviously, like, this is getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but I think this idea is like becoming plausible, not because the Vikings are playing lights out football, their offense is sputtering, but it's largely because what the Lions are not doing. And it's very feasible to see this happening. And, the thing too that I just want to make clear to people, so people might think like, well, so how is the division wrapped up if week 18 doesn't matter and they play Detroit and we only would be one game up at that point? It's because division record, right? If the Vikings were to beat Detroit and Green Bay, they would then be 4-1 in the division. The Lions would then be 3-2 in the division or something, or worse.
No, I think it would make week 18 not matter, because if we beat them, we would obviously have all the tiebreakers. But if they beat us, I think we would end up with the same division record. And then I'm pretty sure it goes to conference. And I don't know if you know this about the Minnesota Vikings. We don't really lose to conference opponents. Most of our losses are to the AFC. So we've gotten, look, the Vikings, say what you will about, their record and where we're at. In terms of being a game above 500, we are in the best position because we lost to 3 teams from the NFC West, or AFC West, and I feel like there was another AFC team on there, but we just have less conference losses than everybody. It's why if there's like a 3 or 4 team tiebreaker between like us and Seattle and the Rams, as of now, we beat them because our conference record is just better than them. And so I think that is what ultimately pushes us over the line, especially with, in this scenario, their losses come to the Vikings and to the Cowboys, which would be 2 conference losses that stack on top. So it's definitely plausible. I'll do my game ball really quick, and then I'll pass over for final thoughts. I have to point out that how fitting that last week, first time in the show's history, I said, we're doubling down on offense. This is the Josh Dobbs bounce-back game. The offense scored 3 points, and it was the lowest scoring game in a dome in NFL history. When there are times where I wonder why the federal government does not silence me for some of the things I say into microphones. So I thought that was fitting. And so I'm not going to do that with the defense this week, as badly as I want to double down, say, you know what, 2 game balls to Ivan Pace, please. Nope. We're going to go with the offense. And I'm going to do the easy one. I was thinking about going with like Madison or Chandler and being cute. I'm going with Justin Jefferson. He's not going to get sent to the hospital in this game. I think Nick Mullins, whenever he throws the ball to JJ, it's going to be accurate enough that JJ makes the catch and then doesn't immediately get sent to the tent, sent to the back, and then take a ride in the wee woo wagon. So Justin Jefferson is getting my game ball this week for the offensive side of the ball. My final thoughts very quickly will be Shop Unified. Follow the show at LTB Vikings. Follow Will at Will Bad Lose, and check out the Bad Loser blog. And yeah, I think my final thoughts, I'm just going to yield my time to that whole, the Vikings are going to go 3-0 over the next 3, and the Lions are going to go 0-3. Those are the final thoughts. And also, I made the fantasy playoffs in 1 league this season instead of 2 leagues. So the league I care about, the league that I bought my championship rings for, I missed in that league. But I didn't have the worst record in the league. I rallied back. I'm on like a 4-game win streak in that league. So just that close.
It's just about respect at this point.
It is about respect, and unfortunately, I think I would have made the playoffs if I would have started CJ Stroud instead of Jaron Hall. the week of the Falcons game because Jalen Hall got me like 2 points, and that was the week that CJ Stroud had like 500 yards and 6 touchdowns, and I lost by like 26 points, and CJ Stroud had like 60 on my bench. So, you live and you learn. You live and you learn, but we'll do better next year. I'll have a press conference at some point, but we're gonna let the playoffs play out. But yeah, that's all from me. I'll let you take us home and get us out of here, and then we'll have fun.
So do you want me to close with a fun tidbit or a football analysis final thought?
I like fun tidbit.
So my fun tidbit, there were a few. I was rolling in my notes preparation for this show, but my fun tidbit is Nick Mullins went to the University of Southern Mississippi. Do you know who else went to the University of Southern Mississippi? Who played for the Vikings?
Someone who
played quarterback.
Allegedly embezzles money from the government.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Apart from his embezzlement of the federal government and funds and volleyball arenas and all those things,
allegedly,
Brett Favre was an awesome quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings for one season, and that was 2009. We need some of that magic. This team is, although they're firmly in the playoffs right now, they are sort of hanging on by a thread by all these 3-0 wins and 500 turnovers and all these things. They're somehow still in the playoff picture. They need some of that magic. Let's hope Nick Mullins can deliver it, also known as Jolly Old St. Nicholas. And, it's just that time of year, you got the night before Christmas and all that, and it's perfect. Nick Mullins riding off into the sunset with the sleigh and the reindeer and a Southern Miss Favre jersey on his back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have to throw out there. I meant to throw this out. Here we go. Jordan's second final thoughts. We're going to break the record for Jordan's final thoughts tonight. The last time the Vikings had a serious injury derail their season and then they ended up being in playoff contention was 2017. And the Vikings had a late season matchup. Granted, it was in Minnesota, but it was against Cincinnati. And they beat the Bengals so bad in that game that Teddy Bridgewater made an appearance. And that was like the big Teddy's back, holy crap, we never thought we'd see it again game. And maybe that happens. I wanted to...
He threw a pick in that game, didn't he?
No, I don't think he
in
threw
his
a pick.
4 throws, he was not good.
It was not great, but I don't think it was a pick. It was like his first pass was like a missile 3 yards. It was like a 3-yard pass, and it was a rocket, and it hit the dude in the hands and bounced up. Maybe it did get picked. I don't remember. We beat them like 38-6. It was
bad.
It was a beatdown. Yeah. It was a beatdown.
Yeah, and also since we're giving multiple final thoughts this week, not to poop on your party, but you said the last time the Vikings went to the stadium formerly known as Paul Brown Stadium was that preseason game. I think you're referencing the one. The last time they were there was actually 2021, week 1.
Yeah, you're right.
And the Vikings lost to Burrow in overtime, and Delvin Cook fumbled in overtime, and he may or may not have actually fumbled depending on replay review.
He did not.
Jamar Chase had a coming out party against Bashad Breeland, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. That was the year they went to the Super Bowl.
That is the year they went to the Super Bowl. So let's hope 2017 is repeated, not 2021. We'll see you guys next week, hopefully recapping a Vikings win and inching closer to that aforementioned division title. Skol, y'all.